Here is Chief Meteorologist Chase Jones.
Well, it was cold well before sunset, but as soon as the sun went down, it definitely got cold pretty quick. And then a pretty good shot at Jupiter as it makes its way down across the horizon. And we're cooling off pretty quickly, but those winds out of the north are finally dying down as they turn out of the west. Temperature change over the last 24 hours all the way down to 40 degrees, warmed up around 50, and then we're already down there into those lower 30s right now. Looking at the temperatures across the entire Concho Valley as we start to see some of that cold air sink in from the north. 35 in San Angelo, everybody else in a combination of those upper 30s, those lower 30s, those mid 30s across the entire region. Take a good look across the entire area. 35 in Sterling City, 39 down there in Junction, 32 way down there in Ozona, already hitting that freezing mark, looking like 7 degrees across the entire Concho Valley. Still just outside of that 10-degree mark, but despite seeing some of these colder temperatures, still pretty much inside that 10-degree standard spread. When we look at the humidity indices across the entire Concho Valley, still in those 20s, if not pushing up into those 30s for dew points, while the humidity indices have jumped all the way up into those 70s. So we're going to look out for a frosty morning, so make sure you're defrosting the windshield in the morning, but go ahead and open up the cabinets, crack the pipes, pull the pets and the plants inside, and bundle up if you do have to head outside. Now we're going to continue to track some of this cold air as it makes its way down from the Rocky Mountains, but we have our eye on the next round of moisture. Now tomorrow's looking like we're still going to see a pretty cold night, but by the end of the week pushing up into the 70s, and that's where we're going to level out. We're keeping our eye on those concentrations of blues around the Gulf Coast region like usual, having our eyes peeled for some of that southerly wind. So we're looking out for some of that ridging. Now here's our long wave trough making its way out of the east. Here's the ridging making its way in. That's going to gradually warm us up into the 70s, but then we have our eye peeled for some of these smaller short wave troughs that are going to make their way in by next week. There's a cutoff low shaping up somewhere around in the Four Corners, but it's not looking nearly as extreme, so the colder weather could be a little bit lighter, dropping us back down another 10 degrees, somewhere around the 60s and the 20s, if not pushing down into the 50s. Now when we're looking at the water vapor imagery, we're getting a better idea of the next winter storm. And then of course the cold air sliding across the Concho Valley. You can sort of see where it's centralizing itself over us right now, but as we start to look near New Mexico, that's the tail end of this cold weather, so you can sort of see how fast it's moving with the next storm barreling over it. Of course, we talk about the wildfires near Malibu, talking about the Santa Ana winds. Don't think that weather's going to be making its way down across that portion of the west coast. Now when we talk about the Gulf Coast into the east coast for severe weather outlook, it sort of has been that way for the past couple days and over the weekend. It's still going as it starts to make its way off the east coast, but it's a pretty strong cutoff low. Somewhere around the Hudson Bay, you're watching a lot of this winter storm push across the Rocky Mountains, sort of on the backside of it. The cold air makes its way down to the Concho Valley, but it's sort of on its way out. It's following that long wave trough. Now, the Futurecast is going to show you where we're going to watch more of this cold air sink in from the north before we start to warm back up. And then by Thursday, cloud cover starts to push in pretty low as it makes its way off towards the east. Could look like some misty conditions. It's trying to rain out there. We definitely need more moisture, but behind me, the next winter storm, for us, the next round of cold air. So tonight, back down way below those into those upper 20s. So go ahead and check on Brian, make sure he's okay, if he's not frozen alive. Then tomorrow up into the 60s, but we're going to slowly get there, but we're going to drop back down into the 30s. So let's keep practicing a whole lot of that insulation freezing weather prevention as we make our way closer to Friday, warming back up, thawing things out. Then we fight back and forth in those 70s. I think that's where we're going to level out while those overnight lows push up into the 40s, but it's still pretty relatively dry. Stay tuned for more. For the break, you're watching KSAN News at 10.